Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel Sola Stories. I gave my $800,000 retirement fund to my daughter, but an accidental glance at my son-in-law's Facebook page led me to a decision that she regrets to this day. My name is Carol, and I'm just an ordinary retired old woman. I spent my entire life pinching pennies, and I managed to save up $800,000 for my retirement. I gave it all to my only daughter, Emily, hoping that she and her husband, Kevin, could build a wonderful life together. 2 days ago, I was learning how to use a smartphone when I unintentionally tapped on Kevin's Facebook profile. In that instant, it felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. Tears streamed down my face, unstoppable. My heart was shattered into so many pieces I could never pick them all up. But after I finished crying, I wiped my tears away. This wasn't over. They thought I was a senile old woman they could easily manipulate. Well, even a cornered rabbit will bite, let alone a mother whose entire life's work had been stolen from her. My daughter Emily and my son-in-law Kevin have been married for 3 years. Their life together, from my perspective, has been lukewarm at best. Emily works an administrative job at a private company. The pay is not great, but she values the stability. As for Kevin, he works at a sales company and claims to be a top performer, but I was never quite sure how much he actually earned. All I knew was that after paying their mortgage and car loans each month, their budget was always tight. But young people are ambitious. They were always complaining that their 2-bedroom condo was too small and that it would be completely inadequate once they had children. They dreamed of upgrading to a bigger house in a good school district. In our city, a house in a good school district is a money pit. You can't even think about it without a down payment of at least $100,000 or $200,000. With Emily and Kevin's salaries, saving that much would take forever. So, the pressure was subtly, but surely, shifted onto me. It started with Emily sighing dramatically during dinner at my house. "Mom," she'd say, "you should see my classmate, Ashley. They're already on their second house, a huge split level with a view of the park. And here I am, still crammed into this little shoebox." As she spoke, she'd mindlessly poke at the rice in her bowl with her fork, her brow furrowed in a knot. My heart ached for her. What mother doesn't want her child to have a good life? "Take it slow, you're both still young," I'd say to comfort her. But in my mind, I was already calculating my retirement savings. Kevin's performance was even more impeccable. He was so sweet-tongued, truly. Like his words were coated in 3 layers of honey. He never showed up at my door empty-handed. One day it would be a bag of imported fruit, the next a beautifully packaged box of health supplements. I knew those things were more flash than substance and ridiculously overpriced, but the way he called me Mom was so genuine, so warm and thoughtful. "Mom, you're looking wonderful lately, even younger than Emily," he'd say, his eyes crinkling into a smile, revealing a set of perfectly white teeth and a sunny disposition. "Mom, you have to try this massage cushion. It's great for your lower back. I saw you rubbing it the other day." He would kneel in front of me, patiently explaining how to use it, his movements skilled and considerate. Sometimes, watching him bustle around, I would even have the fleeting thought that he was more attentive than my own daughter, Emily. People have hearts, after all. Who doesn't like to be complimented? Who doesn't like to be cared for? I gradually began to see him as a son, feeling that Emily had made the best decision of her life by marrying him. With that foundation of trust established, Emily's words started to carry more weight. "Mom, Kevin's company might be going through some restructuring soon and I'm worried." "Mom, all my coworkers are talking about preschools. The good ones have long waiting lists, and without a house in the right neighborhood, you can't even dream of getting in." "Mom, I've been having trouble sleeping lately. The moment I close my eyes, all I can think about is the house. The stress is just too much." As she spoke, her eyes would turn red, her voice cracking with emotion. Seeing my daughter's increasingly haggard face, the persistent anxiety in her eyes, felt like a needle piercing my heart. My retirement money was what my late husband and I had saved, penny by penny, before he passed, plus my pension over the years. I had originally thought of this money as my safety net, the treasure that would secure my later years, never to be touched unless absolutely necessary. But seeing my daughter in such a state, I began to waver. What do we parents live for? Isn't it just to see our children live well and be happy? You can't take money with you when you're gone. Paving the way for your children, isn't that a parent's greatest wish? At the time, that thought felt so right, so noble. Who could have known that the road I was paving was made from my own ground-up bones? Once I made up my mind, I went to the bank and cashed out several certificates of deposit, then gathered all the loose funds from my checking account. It came to exactly $800,000. The day I went to the bank to transfer the money was overcast. The gray sky mirrored my mood, heavy with both anticipation for the young couple's new life and a faint, almost imperceptible unease. After all, it was the life savings of my husband and me. My hand, clutching the piece of paper with the account number, trembled slightly at the fingertips. Kevin and Emily came with me. Kevin seemed even more nervous and excited than I was. He ran around getting a number, waiting in line, and constantly came over to hold my arm and ask if I was okay. "Mom, are you tired? Why don't you sit and rest for a bit? Mom, would you like some water?" His attentiveness and filial piety made others in the line look over with admiration. When the teller confirmed the information, her voice clearly announced the number, $800,000. "Is that correct?" I nodded, feeling my heart thump heavily against my ribs at the sound of that number. "Mom, don't you worry." Kevin leaned in close, his voice low but exceptionally clear. "We will live our lives well, work hard, and buy the house as soon as possible. In the future, we'll be the ones to take care of you in your old age." His eyes were sparkling with sincerity and gratitude. Emily squeezed my other hand, her palm a little clammy. "Mom, thank you." The crisp sound of the successful transaction notification rang out, but it felt like a hammer blow to my heart. A text message from the bank arrived moments later, showing my account balance was now almost zero. In that instant, a part of me felt hollowed out, empty, and adrift. I couldn't even bring myself to look at the message, but when I looked up, I saw my daughter and son-in-law hugging each other tightly, tears of joy streaming down Emily's face. Kevin turned around and gave me a deep, respectful bow. "Thank you, Mom." In that moment, all my reluctance and anxiety seemed to be smoothed over by that thank you and that hug. I felt it was worth it. $800,000. To some, it might just be the cost of a few dinners or a couple of luxury items. But to me, it was my entire safety net, my sense of security. I had handed it over with my own hands, thinking I was investing in happiness. It turned out I was feeding a wolf in sheep's clothing. After I gave them the money, the young couple did become even more attentive to me. They called almost every weekend to pick me up for dinner at their place. The meals were still simple home-cooked dishes, nothing extravagant, but Kevin always found a way to liven up the atmosphere. He would tell animated stories about funny things that happened at his office, compliment my appearance at just the right moments, proactively serve me food, and always insist on doing the dishes. After dinner, he'd brew a pot of tea and chat with me, or turn on the television to find some health and wellness shows he thought I might like. Emily, on the other hand, didn't say much. Most of the time, she would just sit beside us with a smile, listening to our conversation and occasionally chiming in. Looking back now, perhaps her smile had long concealed a trace of unease and guilt. They would also occasionally mention their house hunting. "Mom, we went to see that new development in the south end of town. The floor plans are pretty good, but the price is a bit high. Mom, that school district house on the east side is nice too, but it's a bit old, and the lighting isn't great. They always said they needed to look more, compare more, that there was no rush." I agreed. Buying a house is a major decision. It requires careful consideration and shouldn't be rushed. I never once suspected the truth behind their words. During that time, I was immersed in a false sense of happiness. They built a stage for you, making you think you're the guest of honor, when in reality, you're just the stepping stone. Once they get where they're going, they kick you away without a second thought. It was also during this period that I started learning to use a smartphone. It was Emily who suggested it. "Mom, you should learn how to use Facebook Messenger. It'll be easier for us to stay in touch, and you can see our posts to know what we've been up to." She bought me a new phone and patiently taught me how to turn it on and off, connect to Wi-Fi, chat on Messenger, and scroll through Facebook. I'm old, my eyesight is poor, and my fingers are not nimble. I was a slow learner, clumsy and awkward, often tapping one thing and having something else pop up, or accidentally deleting an app. After teaching me a few times, Emily started to lose her patience. Although she never said it outright, her slightly furrowed brow and rushed tone made me feel it. After that, it was mostly Kevin who taught me. He was much more patient than Emily, demonstrating the steps over and over without any sign of annoyance. "Look, Mom, you tap here for Explore, and then here for News Feed." He would hold my hand, guiding my finger. I was quite moved at the time, thinking I couldn't have asked for a better son-in-law. After learning the basics, I mainly used it to read the news, chat with them in our family group message, and occasionally video call a few of my old friends. I rarely clicked on the news feed. I always felt it was something for young people, and what was an old lady like me going to do there? Who could have known that this feature, the one I was least familiar with, would give me a glimpse into a cruel truth? 2 nights ago, I was tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I wasn't sure what was wrong, but I had a persistent feeling of anxiety in my chest. When you get old, you sleep less. It was past 1 in the morning, and the world outside my window was silent, except for the fleeting streak of light from a passing car. I picked up the phone from my nightstand, thinking I'd read some news to pass the time. My fingers scrolled aimlessly across the screen. I don't know how it happened, but I tapped into the Explore page, and then, as if guided by some unseen force, I clicked on the news feed. It was Kevin who had helped me set up my privacy settings. He'd said, "Mom, I've set it so you can see all of my and Emily's posts." My friends list was small. Besides Emily and Kevin, it was just a few old friends and distant relatives. On the list, Kevin's name and profile picture were prominent. His picture was a wedding photo of him and Emily, both of them smiling blissfully. A thought struck me. Weren't they supposed to be house hunting? Maybe they posted something about it. Driven by curiosity, I clicked on his profile. His timeline didn't have much content, and he didn't post often, mostly pictures from company team-building events, complaints about working overtime, or sharing some inspirational articles. I scrolled down a few posts. The most recent one was from 3 days ago. A photograph took up the entire screen. The background was a brilliant blue ocean and a golden sandy beach with a luxurious resort hotel in the distance. The main subject of the photo was Kevin. He was wearing loud, colorful swim trunks, shirtless, with sunglasses on, and a smile so bright it was almost blinding. His arm was wrapped tightly around a woman's waist. That woman was not Emily. She was wearing a sexy bikini, her figure curvy, her makeup glamorous. She was nestled against Kevin, laughing so hard she was practically bent over. I could even see her fingernails, painted a vivid scarlet, resting on Kevin's arm. Below the picture was a caption, "Sun, sand, and my baby. The perfect getaway." It was followed by a kissy face emoji. The location tag read, "South Beach, Miami." In that moment, it wasn't the phone screen that shattered. It was my entire world. My mind went blank, as if a thunderclap had exploded right next to my ear, leaving a deafening hum. Time seemed to stand still. I stared at the photo, checking it again and again. Was I seeing things? Was his account hacked? Was it? But that face, that familiar smile which now seemed so utterly foreign, was undeniably Kevin's. It was him, the same son-in-law who called me Mom more affectionately than anyone, the man who had vowed to buy a house in a good school district and give Emily a happy life, the liar who had taken my $800,000. My hands began to tremble violently and uncontrollably. The phone slipped, hitting the floor with a crack, the screen splintering into a spiderweb of lines. Tears, like broken strings of pearls, gushed out, instantly blurring my vision. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed by a giant, invisible hand, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. $800,000? Buying a house? A school district house? It was all lies, all of it. He took my hard-earned money and went to Miami with another woman. Sun, sand, his baby. A perfect getaway. And what about me? What about Emily? What were we to him? I thought about how I had scrimped and saved all these years, picking through wilted vegetables at the grocery store, never buying a single new piece of clothing for myself. I thought about my husband, how he held my hand on his deathbed and told me to take care of myself, to live a good life. And I thought about Emily, my daughter. Did she know? Was she being kept in the dark, or was she aware of it all, perhaps even an accomplice? All these thoughts, like venomous snakes, coiled around my heart. Grief, humiliation, cold disillusionment, and despair all swirled together, leaving behind an endless chill that spread from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. I collapsed onto the cold floor, my body shaking like a leaf in the autumn wind. It turns out, the clown was me all along, the kind who goes bankrupt for the performance. Tears are a strange thing. I used to cry from happiness, from being moved, from missing my late husband. Now I know you can also cry from foolishness and a broken heart. And those tears flow harder, and they burn more. I don't know how I made it through that night. When dawn broke, the sky outside was still a dreary gray, just like my heart, devoid of a single ray of light. I looked in the mirror and saw a red-eyed, pale-faced, disheveled old woman staring back at me, a stranger I could barely recognize. After crying all night, my eyes were swollen like two ripe walnuts, and my voice was hoarse, as if it had been scraped with sandpaper. But my mind was clearer than ever. I couldn't just let this go. I forced myself to get up, washed my face, and changed my clothes. Then, I picked up my phone and dialed my daughter, Emily. The phone rang several times before she answered. "Hello, Mom?" Emily's voice sounded lazy, as if she had just woken up. Emily. I tried to keep my voice calm, but its raspy quality betrayed my emotional state. What has Kevin been busy with lately? There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. His company sent him on a business trip. It's a really important project. He said he'll be busy for a while. It's been tough on him. Emily's voice was hesitant and unnatural. A business trip. An important project. My heart sank. Miami, sun, sand, and his baby. So that was his important project. I didn't expose her lie immediately. After all these years as her mother, I knew her too well. Whenever she was nervous or guilty, she would stammer slightly, and her eyes would dart away. Even though I couldn't see her eyes over the phone, her unnatural tone told me everything. "Oh, a business trip. That does sound tough," I said, pausing for a moment before casually asking, "So, how is the house hunting going? Is the money I gave you guys still enough?" The house? Oh, Emily's voice grew even more flustered. We're still looking. No rush. The money is fine for now. Don't worry about it, Mom." She quickly changed the subject. "Mom, did you call for something specific?" I have something I need to do." "No reason, just checking in," I said. I hung up the phone, and as I listened to the dial tone, my heart sank to the bottom of a pit. Emily's attitude sent a bone-chilling cold through me. She might not have known everything, but at the very least, she knew Kevin wasn't on some grueling business trip. And she probably knew that the $800,000 wasn't being used for house hunting, as they had claimed. She was helping Kevin lie. She was hiding it from me. In the world of adults, sometimes even having a breakdown requires picking the right time and place. And here I was, the mother, having to play along with the act. How pathetic is that? After hanging up with Emily, my mind was in even greater turmoil. My daughter's attitude was a thorn, stabbing me with a sharp pain. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront Kevin directly. I found Kevin on my Messenger app and tried to make a voice call. Call could not be completed. I then tried his cell number. "The person you are calling is unavailable at this time. Please try again later," a cold, automated voice replied. I didn't give up, trying several more times with the same result. On one attempt, it rang a few times before being abruptly disconnected. He was avoiding me. A wave of indescribable anger and disgust washed over me. I opened our chat window, my fingers trembling with rage as I typed out a message. "Kevin, where are you? When are you coming back? How is the money for the house being used?" After sending the message, there was nothing but silence. A long time passed, so long that I almost thought he wouldn't reply at all, when my phone finally chimed. It was a reply from Kevin. The tone was casual, as if nothing had happened. "Mom, I'm on a business trip. The signal is pretty bad here, so I just saw your message. This project is really busy. It'll probably be a few more days before I can head back. Don't worry about the money. We have it all planned out, and we're looking at places. I'll let you know the second we have good news. You just rest up at home and don't worry about us." He even added a smiley face emoji at the end. It was glib and dismissive. He didn't mention the Facebook post at all. He either had his posts set to a specific friends list that excluded me, or he was betting that an old woman like me would never see it, or wouldn't understand it if I did. This kind of condescension and deceit felt like a cold, venomous snake wrapping itself around my heart, sending shivers down my spine. Some people can lie without batting an eye, probably because their skin is so thick that the truth can't squeeze through. And he was playing games with me, assuming this old lady doesn't know her way around the internet. I couldn't remain passive any longer. I sat on the cold sofa. The sunlight outside was bright, but I couldn't feel any of its warmth on my skin. I thought of my old friend, Brenda. Brenda has been my neighbor for years and is my best friend. She's outspoken, sharp-tongued, and sees things much more clearly than I do. I put on my coat, locked the door, and went straight to Brenda's house. Brenda was on her balcony, tending to her plants. Seeing my distraught state, she was startled. "Carol, what on earth happened to you? You look awful." I couldn't hold it in any longer. I told her everything, from giving them the $800,000 to discovering Kevin's Facebook post and my subsequent calls with Emily and Kevin. Of course, I omitted the exact amount, just saying it was a huge sum of my retirement money, my life savings. After hearing the story, Brenda exploded with anger. She slammed her hand on a nearby plant stand, making a potted lily tremble. This Kevin is a real piece of work. A snake in the grass. A bastard. She cursed, spitting with fury. And Emily, I think she's lost her mind, believing all that nonsense from her own husband. She stood with her hands on her hips, pacing back and forth in her living room, fighting my battle for me. "And you, Carol?" She suddenly stopped and pointed her finger at my nose. "What am I going to do with you? Such a large sum of money, and you just gave it away without so much as a promissory note. You're far too trusting. You've really lost your marbles this time." Being scolded by her actually calmed me down a bit. She was right. I had been foolish, far too trusting. After her tirade, Brenda cooled down too. She had me sit, poured me a glass of hot water, and took my cold hands in hers. "Carol, now is not the time for anger and cursing." Her eyes became sharp. "The most important thing is to figure out where that money went, who that woman is, and how much Emily really knows and was involved in." She paused, looking at me seriously. "If you confront Kevin now, you'll just tip him off. He'll deny everything and might even turn it around on you. What proof do you have? A single screenshot from Facebook? He could say it was photoshopped or that his account was hacked." Brenda's words were like a bucket of cold water, snapping me to my senses. She was right. If I confronted him now, what would I accomplish other than putting him on his guard? Then, what should I do? I asked, feeling completely lost. "Stay calm," Brenda said, her tone firm. "Pretend you know nothing. Start with Emily, try to probe gently, see if you can get any truth out of her. At the same time, you need to find a way to gather evidence. Did you get a screenshot of that Facebook post?" I shook my head. I was too upset at the time, and I dropped my phone. "Sigh," Brenda sighed. "Well, what's done is done. But you need to be observant. See if there are any other clues from Kevin credit card statements, transfer records, or any other communication with that woman. With people like this, you can't go head to head. You have to use your brain." Brenda patted my shoulder. "Don't be afraid. I'm here for you. We're going to get justice. You know what they say, trust but verify, especially when it comes to in-laws. But a good friend, in a crisis, is worth more than anything. At least she can help you straighten out your worldview when it's been knocked sideways." Leaving Brenda's house, my mind was much clearer, and I had a preliminary plan. Following Brenda's advice, I decided to lay low and pretend I knew nothing. That weekend, as usual, I called Emily. "Emily, honey, I bought your favorite cut of pork today and made a pot roast. Bring Kevin over for dinner." "Oh, wait, he's on a business trip, right? Well, then you just come over by yourself." I tried my best to sound natural. "Okay, Mom." Emily's reply was quick and cheerful. That evening, Emily came alone. At the dinner table, I served her a piece of the tender, flavorful pot roast. "Eat up. You look like you've lost weight recently. Is work that stressful?" I asked with feigned concern. "It's okay, just a little busy," Emily said, keeping her head down as she ate, seemingly unwilling to talk much. I changed the subject, casually chatting about neighborhood news. "By the way, you know Mrs. Davis's daughter? She got engaged the other day. I heard the groom's family bought them a 1,600 square foot house, and the ring was $20,000. Gosh, the pressure on young people to get married these days is just immense." As I spoke, I secretly watched Emily's reaction. Sure enough, at the mention of houses and money, Emily's expression visibly stiffened. The hand holding her fork paused mid-air. Her eyes darted around, avoiding mine. Yeah, housing prices are pretty high now," she managed to agree, her voice low. Then, she immediately changed the subject. "Mom, my company is working on a new project. It's super busy, so I might have to work late a lot." My heart sank. This only confirmed my suspicions. She definitely knew something, or at least she knew that the $800,000 wasn't being used to buy a house. Her sighs and complaints about houses and pressure, how much of that was genuine, and how much was an act she was putting on for me, in concert with Kevin. At the dinner table, watching my daughter's evasive eyes, I felt a deep chill. The sweet, caring daughter I had raised for over 20 years. How did she become someone else's shield? This meal was a mix of 5 different flavors, none of them pleasant. A few days later, Kevin returned from his business trip. He and Emily came to visit me together, carrying 2 boxes of fancy-looking local specialties. They looked expensive, but a closer look revealed brands I'd never heard of, probably just some cheap stuff in a nice package. The moment he walked in, he was back to his usual sunny, cheerful self. "Mom, I'm back. Look what I brought you." He placed the boxes on the table, rubbing his hands together with an ingratiating smile. "Mom, how have you been? Emily didn't give you any trouble while I was away, did she?" He showered me with questions, never mentioning Facebook, never mentioning Miami, as if none of it had ever happened. I fought back the nausea rising in my stomach and forced a smile. "I'm fine. It's so thoughtful of you both." During dinner, I looked at his face, so full of sincerity, and almost thought the Academy Awards owed him an Oscar. In the middle of the meal, I deliberately brought up Brenda's family. Sigh. Brenda was telling me her son lost a lot of money in some investment recently. Young people these days, their ambitions are too big. They all want to get rich overnight. It's better to be down to earth and live a steady life. As I spoke, I watched Kevin's reaction. His hand, which was reaching for some food, clearly paused. His face seemed to pale for a second, but he quickly recovered and said with a smile, "Mom, you're right. Investing is risky. Don't worry. We know what we're doing. We won't be reckless. We have a solid plan for that money. It's very secure." His composure, his ability to remain calm under pressure, only made me more certain that this man was not just a liar, but a master of deception with an ironclad psychological defense. A head-on confrontation wouldn't work. I had to find his weakness, find concrete evidence. Looking at his phony face, I silently made a promise to myself. No matter how good the performance, the show must eventually end. We'll see about that. Life seemingly returned to normal, but I knew it was just the calm before the storm. About 2 weeks later, on a weekend evening, Emily and Kevin suddenly showed up at my door. Both looked grim, especially Kevin, whose brow was tightly furrowed as if he were facing a monumental problem. My heart skipped a beat. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, just a few moments after they sat down, Kevin spoke up. "Mom," he said, wringing his hands, his face a mixture of distress and a barely concealed urgency. "There's something I need to discuss with you." "What is it?" "Go on," I said, picking up my teacup to hide my vigilance. "It's like this." Kevin took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. "I have a really close friend, a buddy I grew up with. His family is in some trouble, and they urgently need a sum of money to get by. It's about $200,000. $200,000? I sneered internally but kept my face impassive. "He came to me, and I can't just turn him away," Kevin said, thumping his chest with an earnest tone. "Mom, you can trust me. This friend of mine is absolutely reliable. He's a businessman with an excellent reputation. This is just a temporary cash flow problem. Loaning him the money isn't just helping him out. The interest is quite high. He said 3 months at most, and he'll definitely pay it back with interest." He painted a rosy picture, as if it were a guaranteed, profitable deal. "The money we have," he paused, glancing at me with a meaningful look, "is all tied up in that investment fund we told you about, and we can't withdraw it right now. So, I was wondering if you could help us figure something out. Maybe ask some relatives and friends? Or maybe use your old house as collateral for a bank loan. It would be quick, just 3 months, and it's all paid back." Well now, I almost spat out the tea I had just sipped. The $800,000 hadn't even had time to warm his pockets, and now he was after my house, my last refuge. Did he think I was an ATM, one with an unlimited overdraft? Or did he think I was so senile, so brain-damaged, that I would believe his ridiculously flawed story? A buddy needs money? I think his own financial hole is what he can't fill. "Oh my, $200,000 is no small sum," I said, putting down my teacup, feigning surprise and concern. "Kevin, is this friend of yours reliable? There are so many scammers out there these days. We have to be careful not to get cheated." I deliberately emphasized the word scammers. "Reliable, absolutely reliable," Kevin immediately guaranteed, full of conviction. "Mom, we grew up together, practically shared a pair of pants. I know him better than anyone. There's absolutely no problem." He even took out his phone, pretending to show me their chat history. "See, this is what he told me yesterday. He's desperate." But his fingers scrolled so fast that the words on the screen were just a blur, impossible to read. A classic sign of a guilty conscience. Emily, sitting beside him, chimed in softly. "Mom, Kevin's friend, I've met him. He's a nice guy, and the interest really is high this time. It's just for 3 months. It'll be over before you know it. Why don't you just help us out?" Her eyes held a hint of pleading, along with a touch of anxiety and evasion. It was clear she was being used as his pawn again. Watching my daughter being dragged deeper and deeper into this mess, my heart ached with a stabbing pain. But on the surface, I had to maintain a motherly smile and play along. Life is a stage, and it's all about the acting. At my age, I was being forced to hone my craft and compete for Best Actress. I let out a soft sigh, my face showing a look of difficulty. "Kevin, Emily, it's not that I don't want to help you, but I really don't have any money left." I spread my hands, my tone helpless. "You both know all my retirement savings were given to you not long ago for the down payment on the house you were going to buy. I don't have a single penny to my name right now. As for this old house," I paused, my voice becoming firm, "it was left to me by your grandparents. It's my last refuge, my final nest. I absolutely cannot touch it. What if something goes wrong? Where would these old bones of mine sleep?" I made myself perfectly clear. The money was gone, and the house was my bottom line. No one was to even think about it. Kevin's face fell instantly. The smile vanished, his mouth turned down, and a flicker of impatience and cruelty crossed his eyes. His tone hardened. "Mom, we're not asking for your money or your house. It's just a temporary loan. Do you really not trust me that much?" He started to play the victim, his voice tinged with accusation. "Look at Emily. She hasn't had an easy life with me. I'm trying to find ways to earn more money. Isn't it for her, for our little family to have a better life? Can't you just support me?" He was trying to guilt-trip me. Emily lowered her head, nervously twisting the hem of her shirt, and whispered with a sob, "Mom, please, just help us this one last time." Seeing my daughter's humble plea, my heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. I knew she must have been forced by Kevin to come here. She wasn't a bad person at heart, just too weak, too dependent on him. But this time, I couldn't be soft-hearted. To be soft now would be to condone their mistakes, and it would be cruel to myself. I took a deep breath, suppressing the pain in my heart, and looked at them. My tone was gentle, but my stance was unyielding. "Kevin, Emily, it's not that I'm being cruel. I truly can't help. You know my situation better than anyone. $200,000 is not $2,000. I can't afford to take that risk. You two should think of another way. The guilt trip won't work on me. I raised my daughter to be happy, not to team up with her husband to leech off her old mother. My bottom line is this house, and no one is touching it. The air in the room seemed to freeze. The living room was silent, except for the tick-tock of the wall clock, each tick striking a nerve. Kevin's face was ashen, his lips pressed into a tight line, his chest heaving as he clearly struggled to contain his anger. He probably never expected that I, the usually agreeable old woman, would be so firm this time. After a few moments of tense silence, he abruptly stood up, shot me a cold glare, and threw out, "Fine. I get it. We'll figure something out ourselves." With that, without even waiting for Emily, he grabbed her arm and stormed towards the door without a backward glance. Emily stumbled, being pulled so suddenly. She looked back at me, her expression a complex mix of disappointment, grievance, and perhaps a hint of relief. Bang! The security door slammed shut with a loud crash that made my heart tremble. They were gone. I collapsed onto the sofa, feeling as if all my strength had been drained away, my mind a chaotic mess. Kevin's enraged reaction and his ridiculously flimsy excuse only made me more certain that there was a huge problem with that $800,000. His desperation for money, to the point of eyeing my house, couldn't possibly be for some close friend. He must have gotten himself into some massive trouble and was desperate for cash to cover it up. What could it be? A failed investment? Unlikely. His frantic behavior was more like a terrifying thought flashed through my mind like lightning. Gambling debts. Loan sharks. The more I thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Only a gambler would have such a desperate thirst for money, would resort to such deceitful means, would lose all reason. If that was the case, my $800,000 were likely gone for good. No, I couldn't just keep guessing. I had to find proof. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Expecting them to have a crisis of conscience was like waiting for a pig to fly. I suddenly remembered someone. Kevin's younger brother from his hometown, a man named Mark. I recalled Emily mentioning once that Kevin had a younger brother who worked in their hometown, a more honest and down-to-earth person. He had attended their wedding. I had a faint impression of him, a shy-looking young man who didn't talk much, unlike the slick Kevin. Perhaps I could get some information from him. Once this idea took root, it grew like a weed. I started trying to find a way to contact Mark. Asking Emily was out of the question, and asking Kevin was even more impossible. I remembered a distant relative who seemed to have some remote connection to Kevin's family. After some effort, I managed to get Mark's phone number through that relative. Clutching the piece of paper with the number, my heart pounded. Should I call or not? Would it be too blunt to ask about his brother directly? Would he tell Kevin? After much hesitation, I finally summoned the courage. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I took a deep breath and dialed the number. The phone rang a few times and was picked up. "Hello, who is this?" A youngish male voice with a slight regional accent answered. "Hello, is this Mark?" I tried to make my voice sound as gentle as possible. "Yes, it is. Who's calling?" The person on the other end sounded puzzled. I'm your brother Kevin's mother-in-law, Emily's mother," I identified myself. There was a distinct pause on the other end, then the voice became surprised and reserved. "Oh, Auntie, hello. How did you—" "It's like this, Mark. I didn't jump straight to the point but started with small talk. It's been a while. How are your parents doing?" "They're fine. They're both doing well." "Thanks for asking, Auntie." Mark's tone relaxed a bit. "And how's your brother Kevin been lately? Busy with work, I suppose?" I asked casually. "Yeah, he's been pretty busy." Mark's answer was a bit vague. "Well, here's the thing." I felt the time was right and cautiously threw out my probe. "Auntie just wanted to ask, has your brother run into some kind of trouble recently? He told me a couple of days ago that he was a bit tight on cash and wanted to borrow some money. Is there something wrong at home? Or is he involved in some kind of investment?" I held my breath, waiting for his answer. The other end of the line fell silent. The silence felt like a heavy stone pressing on my heart. After a few seconds, Mark finally spoke, hesitantly, his voice very low. Auntie, about my sister-in-law, there are some things. I don't know if I should say. His hesitation made my heart clench. My brother. Sigh. He sighed again. You should probably be careful. Recently, he seems to have gotten himself into a lot of debt. Paid content begins. A lot of debt. Mark's words were like a thunderclap, exploding in my mind. Although I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed made my heart feel as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, contracting violently. Debt? How much? Do you know what kind of debt? I pressed anxiously, my voice trembling. Auntie, I'm not exactly sure how much. Mark sounded even more troubled and nervous. I heard it from my parents, and some of his old friends mentioned it too. They said my brother. He's been spending money like crazy lately, extravagantly, and he's asked our parents for money several times. My parents are worried sick, spending lavishly, asking family for money. He also said, Mark's voice dropped even lower, almost to a whisper. It seems he's gotten hooked on that online gambling. He's lost a lot. Online gambling. Those two words were like a cold, hard key, instantly unlocking all the puzzles in my mind. No wonder he needed so much money. No wonder he had to make up the lie about buying a house to trick me out of my $800,000 retirement fund. No wonder he took another woman to Miami to splurge. That was either him celebrating a win or a final, desperate binge with money from a loan shark. No wonder he was so frantic to scam another $200,000 a few days ago, even targeting my house. It wasn't for some friend in need. It was to fill the ever-expanding hole of his own gambling debts. The grand plan to buy a house was just a smokescreen to cover his gambling addiction. My $800,000 hadn't gone into bricks and mortar. It had been thrown into the bottomless pit of online gambling. Auntie? Are you still there? Mark's voice pulled me back from my shock and fury. Yes, I'm here. My voice was dry and hoarse. Auntie, please don't lend him any more money. Not a single cent. Mark's tone became urgent and firm. And what I told you today, please don't tell anyone, especially not my brother. If he finds out it was me who told you, I understand, Mark. Thank you for telling me this. I interrupted him, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. I know what to do now. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. After hanging up, I felt a deep chill run through me, my hands and feet turning ice cold. The sunlight streamed through the window, creating a bright patch on the floor, but it couldn't dispel an ounce of the coldness in my heart. After the initial wave of immense anger, an unprecedented clarity washed over me. Anger wouldn't solve the problem, and tears wouldn't bring back my retirement money. I could no longer be weak, no longer wait passively. Kevin, that liar, that gambler, had not only stolen my money but had also trampled on my trust and affection, and he could very well ruin Emily's entire life. I had to fight back. I had to get back what was mine. Even if I couldn't get the money back, I had to expose his true colors, make Emily see the kind of scumbag she married, and get her out of that pit of fire. I went to see Brenda again. This time, I held nothing back. I told her everything Mark had revealed, including the exact amount of $800,000 and Kevin's online gambling problem. After hearing everything, Brenda trembled with rage. She slammed her hand on the table again, making the teacups jump. Gambling. I knew it wasn't that simple. That goddamn Kevin. He's rotten to the core. After her outburst, Brenda calmed down much faster than I did. Her eyes grew sharp, like a general preparing for battle. Carol, now things are clear, but they're also much more complicated. She frowned as she analyzed the situation. Gambling is an addiction that's very hard to quit, and gambling debt is a bottomless pit. Your $800,000. Probably. She didn't finish, but I knew what she meant. The money was likely gone for good, like feeding a meat bun to a dog. What about calling the police? Brenda shook her head. I'm afraid that won't work. First, evidence of gambling is hard to get, especially for online gambling. Second, you transferred the $800,000 to them voluntarily. Even though he said it was for a house, you don't have a loan agreement or any written contract. It would be very difficult to prove it as fraud. If you go to the police, they'll most likely treat it as a domestic dispute and tell you to file a civil lawsuit. Besides, Brenda looked at me. You don't air your dirty laundry in public. If this gets out, what about Emily? How will she face the world? Brenda's words were spot on. I couldn't act rashly. Then, what do we do? I looked at Brenda, my only source of strength now. Gather evidence, Brenda said decisively. Since we can't count on the law to punish him immediately, we'll use our own methods. We need to collect every piece of evidence that proves he lied, squandered the money, gambled, and even possibly cheated. That Facebook screenshot is gone, but that doesn't mean there are no other traces. Brenda's eyes gleamed. What young person these days doesn't have multiple social media accounts? Twitter? Instagram? TikTok? There must be traces left somewhere. And his spending habits, gamblers, are extravagant. There must be abnormal expenses. You need to pay attention. And that woman from Miami, if we can find out who she is, that's solid proof of his infidelity. Once we have all this evidence, Brenda clenched her fist, we'll find the right time to get him, his parents, and Emily all together for a confrontation. We'll tear off his mask, layer by layer, ruin his reputation, and make Emily see him for who he truly is, so she can finally give up on him completely. Listening to Brenda, the suppressed anger in my chest slowly transformed into a cold, determined strength. The tears had dried up, and my heart had hardened. I used to be the, I'm doing this for your own good, Mom. Now, I'm going to show you why the flowers are so red, Carol. Don't mess with me. I'm not to be messed with. From that day on, I began my career as a detective. Like an undercover agent, I silently observed Kevin's every move, looking for any suspicious clues. First, social media. I asked Brenda for help, and she got her nephew, a computer whiz named Leo. Leo was a kind-hearted young man. When he heard my story, Brenda omitted the gambling part, just saying I was scammed out of money that was then squandered. He was filled with righteous indignation and promised to help. He tried to recover any cached data from my phone to see if he could find that crucial Facebook post. At the same time, he started searching various social media platforms for any alternate accounts Kevin might be using. This would take time and patience. Meanwhile, I wasn't idle either. I started paying attention to Kevin's spending habits. Before, when he came to my house, I never noticed these details. Now I examined everything he did as if with a magnifying glass. One weekend, he and Emily came for dinner again. When he took off his shoes at the entrance, he casually draped his jacket over the shoe cabinet. Pretending to go to the kitchen to get some fruit, I caught a glimpse of a piece of paper sticking out of the inner pocket of his jacket. While they were watching TV in the living room, I quietly walked over, pretending to tidy up the shoe cabinet, and quickly snapped a photo of the paper with my phone. Back in the kitchen, I zoomed in on the photo. It was a receipt from a high-end restaurant. The date was during the time he claimed to be on a grueling business trip, and the bill was over $3,000 for 2 people. My heart hammered in my chest. This was definitely evidence. I also started paying attention to his conversations with Emily. Once, when they were both at my house, I deliberately lamented while washing vegetables. Sigh, these investment funds are so risky these days. The news is always reporting on people getting scammed. I think it's safest to keep money in the bank, or maybe buy some government bonds. Young people shouldn't always be looking for shortcuts. Being down to earth is what's most important. I secretly watched Kevin out of the corner of my eye. He was playing on his phone, but his fingers visibly paused when he heard me. He looked up at me, his expression complex, before quickly looking down again and mumbling, "Yeah, Mom's right." Emily, on the other hand, looked uncomfortable. She took a sip of water, avoiding my gaze. I even tried to secretly record their conversations. I knew it was probably wrong, maybe even illegal, but at that point, I was consumed by anger and anxiety, desperate to grasp any possible evidence. I would put my phone in my apron pocket and record their conversations at my house. Although there was nothing substantial, mostly just everyday chatter, Kevin's dismissive and impatient tone, and Emily's occasional hesitant and unfinished sentences made me even more certain that there was a huge secret between them, or rather, a huge secret Kevin was hiding. I used to be a naive sweetheart. Now I'm a hardened realist. Don't ask me how I changed. The answer is, I was forced to. Life, that butcher's knife, can always carve you into the person you never wanted to be, but most need to be. Just as I was methodically collecting these scattered pieces of evidence, Brenda's nephew, Leo, came through with good news. That crucial Facebook post couldn't be recovered. It had been too long, and Kevin had likely set it to private or deleted it. However, Leo found traces of Kevin on a little-known Twitter account. The account name was obscure, and the profile picture was a landscape, but the content gave him away. There were several photos that were clearly him and that glamorous woman in Miami. Though not as explicit as the Facebook post, they were clearly intimate, their relationship obvious. More importantly, there were a few text-only tweets. Luck's run out. Back to square one. Go big or go home. Gotta win it all back next time. Wiped out. Anyone got some ammo I can borrow? Though not explicit, the words strongly implied he was gambling and had lost a lot of money. These screenshots were damning evidence. At the same time, I also learned through some indirect channels that Kevin was far from a top performer at his company. His sales were mediocre, and he even owed money to several colleagues because of his extravagant spending. He had lied to Emily, telling her that the designer bag he bought her was a company bonus, when in fact he had bought it with a credit card and the bill was still unpaid. He had also secretly sold a piece of Emily's jewelry, a gold necklace I had given her as a wedding gift, which had great sentimental value. Emily rarely wore it and kept it in her jewelry box. I accidentally discovered the box was empty. When I pressed her, Emily tearfully admitted that Kevin had taken it to sell, claiming it was for a temporary cash flow issue and that he would buy it back soon. My anger flared up instantly. That bastard. Stealing my money wasn't enough. He was even stealing and selling his own wife's wedding gifts. He was utterly shameless. All right, the chain of evidence was now basically complete. Gambling, Twitter hints, plus Mark's testimony, plus abnormal spending habits. Squandering money. Miami photos plus the expensive restaurant receipt. Deception. The house-buying lie plus the investment lie plus the work income lie. Infidelity. The Miami photos. Stealing his wife's property. The gold necklace. It was enough. This evidence was more than enough to tear off his phony mask. I used to think you had to catch a thief red-handed or a cheater in the act. Now I realize that with people like this, you need patience. You have to peel them like an onion, layer by layer, until you expose the rotten core. It was time for a showdown. I chose a Saturday afternoon. I had called Kevin's parents beforehand. I didn't tell them the truth, just made an excuse that Kevin and Emily seemed to be having some minor disagreements and that I wanted to invite them over to chat and help smooth things over. Kevin's parents were simple, honest farmers. Hearing that the young couple was fighting, they immediately agreed and said they would come that afternoon. I also called Brenda and asked her to come over to give me courage and act as a witness. Brenda agreed without a second thought. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone started to arrive. Kevin and Emily came in first. Kevin didn't seem to know his parents were also coming. He was a bit surprised to see Brenda sitting next to me, but still managed a smile and a greeting. Emily seemed preoccupied and looked unwell. Not long after, Kevin's parents arrived, looking travel-worn and carrying a bag of vegetables from their own garden. They were also surprised to see Brenda but greeted her politely. The living room was suddenly full. Kevin and his parents clearly had no idea what was about to happen and were still making small talk with me. Emily kept her head down, nervously picking at the sofa cushion. Brenda sat beside me and gave me an encouraging look. I took a deep breath, stood up, walked to the center of the living room, and then, with a click, I locked the front door from the inside. At that sound, everyone's attention snapped to me. Kevin's expression changed slightly. "Mom, what are you doing?" I ignored him, turned, and let my calm gaze sweep over everyone in the room, finally landing on Kevin's face, which was still trying to maintain its composure. "Everyone, sit down." My voice was not loud, but it was exceptionally clear. "I've invited you all here today because there is something very important that I want to discuss openly and honestly with all of you." I paused, then said, word by word, "Especially you, Kevin. About the $800,000 I gave you to buy a house, about the so-called investment fund, and also about your perfect getaway in Miami recently." Boom. As soon as the words left my mouth, the color drained from Kevin's face. He shot up from the sofa, his eyes filled with panic and disbelief. Emily also looked up, staring at me in shock, her lips trembling. Kevin's parents were completely stunned, looking from me to their son, utterly bewildered, clearly not understanding what was happening. I knew the moment of truth had finally arrived. A confrontation is like tearing off a Band-Aid. Someone has to do it first. Since you all won't be decent, I'll help you be decent. In this drama today, I am the director. Mom? What? What are you talking about? What, Miami? I don't understand. Kevin tried to feign composure and deny everything, but the panic in his voice was unmistakable. I let out a cold laugh, giving him no opportunity to continue his act. I walked to the coffee table and laid out the evidence I had collected over the past few weeks, piece by piece, for all to see. You don't understand? That's fine. I'll help you remember. I first showed them the photo of the expensive restaurant receipt. This is from the most exclusive restaurant downtown, where you spent over $3,000 with someone during your supposed business trip. Kevin's pupils contracted sharply. Next, I opened my phone's photo gallery and displayed the pictures and text I had screenshotted from his secret Twitter account. And this must be you in South Beach, Miami, with your arm around this baby, enjoying your perfect getaway. And these tweets about your bad luck, going big or go home, and begging for ammo? What sophisticated game were you playing? The glamorous woman in the photos, the incriminating words, each was like a resounding slap across Kevin's face. His face turned from deathly pale to a deep purplish red. His lips trembled, and he couldn't utter a word. Kevin's parents leaned in to look. When they saw the photos and the text, their faces went white. His mother pointed a shaking finger at Kevin. Kevin, what is this? You. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face like a broken pearl necklace. Her eyes, fixed on Kevin, were filled with shock, pain, and utter disappointment. I didn't stop. I took out my phone and played a recording of my conversation with Mark. I had edited it to conceal Mark's name and any identifying information, leaving only the parts where he mentioned Kevin's debts and possible gambling. This is from an inside source who said you're in a lot of debt, possibly from online gambling. Then, I pointed to Emily's wrist, which was bare. She didn't usually wear the gold necklace, but today I had specifically reminded her to bring the now empty jewelry box. And Emily's gold necklace, my wedding gift to her, you secretly took that and sold it too, didn't you? To get more of your ammo? The evidence was irrefutable. It was ironclad. Kevin's psychological defenses completely crumbled. He collapsed onto the floor with a thud, his face ashen. Looking at his pathetic state, I felt no satisfaction of revenge, only a cold, deep sorrow. I walked over to him, looking down at him, my voice low, but every word crystal clear, filled with suppressed anger and heartbreak. Kevin, you tell me, how do you have the audacity to take the $800,000 I worked my entire life to save, and then go and squander it, live it up, support other women, and feed your bottomless pit of a gambling addiction? You swore to me you were going to buy a house, to give Emily a happy life. Was that all just a load of crap? You lied to me. You lied to Emily. You lied to your parents. You lied to everyone. Doesn't your conscience hurt at all? My voice grew louder with emotion, until I was practically screaming. The truth is like sunlight. It can be blinding, but it always dispels the shadows. Seeing his ashen face, I didn't feel the thrill of revenge, only a sense of pathetic absurdity. Faced with the ironclad evidence and my questioning, Kevin completely fell apart. He gave up all resistance and started a new act, tragic repentance. He held his head in his hands and wept, snot and tears covering his face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Emily. I was wrong. I was so wrong, he sobbed, slapping himself across the face. It was me. I lost my mind. I'm a bastard. I shouldn't have gambled. I shouldn't have lied to you all. I was just confused for a moment, and I got trapped. Please, Mom, please, Emily, give me one more chance. I swear I'll change. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll never gamble again. Wah! He cried his heart out, looking utterly sincere. Kevin's parents, seeing their son in this state, were frantic. His mother, tears streaming down her face, also knelt down, grabbing my pants leg and begging, "My dear friend, it's our fault. We didn't raise him right. He's wronged you. He's wronged Emily. Please, for the sake of him knowing he was wrong, for Emily's sake, forgive him this one time." His father, his eyes red, wrung his hands and sighed. "You can't air your dirty laundry in public. If this gets out, how will the children face the world? Please, be merciful and give him another chance. We'll sell everything we have to help him pay you back." They wept and pleaded desperately. If this had been the old me, I might have softened, might have wavered. But now, after everything I had been through, my heart was as hard as ice. I looked at the three of them, feeling nothing. Forgiveness? A second chance? Easy for them to say. My $800,000, my trampled trust, my daughter's betrayed love. Who would compensate for that? Is a gambling addiction something you can just quit? Are lies something you can just erase? Some mistakes, once made, can never be forgiven. I coldly pulled my leg away from his mother's grasp, taking a step back to create distance. My voice was icy, devoid of any emotion. The money must be returned, every single cent. But forgiveness? Impossible. A second chance? I already gave you one. You were the one who didn't cherish it. I turned to look at Emily, who had been silently weeping and trembling this whole time. Emily, my voice softened slightly, but it still held an unwavering resolve. This is your choice to make. Do you continue down this path with a liar and a gambler, jumping into a pit of fire and ruining your life? Or do you cut your losses and start over? You decide. I gave the choice to my daughter. I was breaking every tradition of reconciling, not separating. I didn't want a patched-up mess. I wanted a clean break. A crocodile's tears are not worthy of sympathy. Some mistakes cannot be erased with a simple, "I'm sorry." As for a second chance, maybe in the next life. All eyes in the room turned to Emily. Kevin stopped his wailing and looked up at her, his expression a mixture of pleading and threat. His parents also looked at their daughter-in-law with desperate hope, wishing she would consider the bigger picture. Brenda sat beside me, silent, but her eyes were full of encouragement for Emily. Emily stood there, her slender body trembling slightly. She looked at her weeping, pathetic husband, then at her desperate, pleading in-laws. Finally, her gaze fell on me, and she saw the determination and hope in my eyes. The air seemed to freeze as the seconds ticked by. After a long silence, Emily took a deep breath, as if summoning all her strength. She raised a hand and roughly wiped the tears from her face. Then, she straightened her back and walked, step by step, until she was standing in front of Kevin. Her voice was hoarse from crying, with a slight, almost imperceptible tremor, but every word was crystal clear and resonant. "Kevin, let's get a divorce. I cannot accept a liar, a gambler, as my husband, as the father of my future children. You will find a way to pay back my mother's money. For any part you can't pay, I will work with you to pay it back. That is what we owe her. But between us, it's over." The sky seemed to fall. Kevin was stunned, staring blankly at Emily as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had probably never imagined that his wife, who had always been so obedient and submissive, would so decisively ask for a divorce. His parents were completely dumbfounded, their mouths agape, speechless. After she spoke, Emily didn't spare Kevin another glance. She turned, walked to my side, and squeezed my hand tightly. Her hand was cold and still trembling, but her grip was firm. "Mom." She looked up at me, her eyes red again, but now filled with a newfound determination and relief. "I'm sorry. I was so foolish, so weak before. I let you suffer so much." "My dear child," I squeezed her hand back, feeling a warmth spread through my heart as my own eyes welled up. "It's not too late. It's never too late to wake up." In that moment, I saw the light rekindle in my daughter's eyes. The price had been terrible, but at least she had chosen not to continue sinking in the mire. That was more important than anything. The divorce process was not as clean-cut as Emily had declared. After the initial shock, Kevin started to play dirty. He refused to agree to the divorce and even tried to transfer the title of his old beat-up car, the only asset of any value in his name. He sent Emily private messages, alternating between sweet-talking apologies and vicious threats. But Emily stood firm this time. With me and Brenda by her side, supporting her, giving her advice, and shielding her from Kevin's harassment, she held on. Kevin's parents, probably ashamed of their son's disgraceful behavior and knowing they were in the wrong, didn't put up much of a fight, despite their reluctance. Finally, after some back and forth, they agreed to a divorce. As for the $800,000, just as Brenda had predicted, getting it all back was nearly impossible. Kevin had no ability to repay it. He was already drowning in his own debts. His parents scraped together what they could, selling off some old things from their home, and managed to come up with $200,000, which they returned to me. For the remaining $600,000, Kevin wrote and signed a promissory note, promising to pay it back over 10 years. Looking at that thin piece of paper, I knew I would likely never see the rest of that money. I chalked it up as a very expensive lesson learned. Sometimes life is just that cruel and helpless, but the script of fate is often more dramatic than we can imagine. Just when we thought the story would end with Kevin in debt, Emily divorced, and me losing most of my retirement savings, an unexpected twist occurred. After the divorce, Kevin did not, as he had tearfully promised, turn over a new leaf. Perhaps it was the blow of the divorce or the pressure of his massive debts, but he completely gave up on himself. Not only did he not stop gambling, but he started gambling even more recklessly, desperate for a big win to turn his life around. The outcome was predictable. The hole only got bigger. Then, the loan sharks he owed money to from his earlier gambling came knocking. These were not nice people. Word has it, when they found Kevin, they not only beat him severely but also forced him to pay up. Where was Kevin going to get that kind of money? In his desperation, he resorted to his old tricks, trying to scam other people. It may have even gone beyond just scamming money, possibly involving other fraudulent activities. Finally, someone called the police. When the police began their investigation, they followed the trail, which led them to his online gambling, the scam involving my retirement fund, which, while difficult to prosecute on its own, became part of the evidence chain and his subsequent fraudulent activities. In the end, Kevin was arrested by the police for fraud involving a significant amount of money. He would now face the full penalty of the law. What goes around, comes around. Heaven's justice is slow, but it is sure. I couldn't send him to prison myself, but the law could. This is what they call he who lives by injustice will die by it. Hearing the news of Kevin's arrest, I had mixed feelings. There was no triumphant joy of revenge, but rather a sense of weary finality and relief. The wicked getting their just deserts that was probably the best ending possible. Kevin received the punishment he deserved, and this chapter of our lives was finally closed. After going through this painful marriage and divorce, Emily was down for a while, but she is strong at her core. With the support and encouragement of me, Brenda, and her friends, she slowly picked herself back up. She found a more challenging job and started to focus on self-improvement. She became more independent, more confident, and more appreciative of the people around her. My relationship with Emily also underwent a kind of baptism and rebirth. We are no longer the traditional mother-daughter dynamic of one giving and the other depending. We are more like friends who can support each other and communicate as equals. We both learned that while love and trust are important in a family, maintaining clear boundaries and individual independence is just as crucial. My life has also turned a new page. Although I lost most of my retirement money, and my quality of life in my later years will surely be affected, I have not wallowed in the pain and loss of the past. With the $200,000 I got back, plus the little savings I had left, and by selling some old gold and silver jewelry I had collected in my youth that now seemed unnecessary, I have replanned my retirement. I am no longer thinking about relying on anyone. I have decided to live for myself for once. I enrolled in a calligraphy class at the local senior center, attending twice a week. Practicing calligraphy requires a calm mind, which is perfect for tempering my spirit. In the class, I've met a few new, like-minded friends. We practice our writing, drink tea, and chat. My days are quite fulfilling. I've also started learning about financial management. Even though I don't have much money left, I need to learn how to manage it. On nice days, I take a walk in the park or go on short trips to the nearby countryside with Brenda and our friends. The money is gone, but I can adjust my lifestyle. Life goes on. You can't live forever in the shadows of the past. You can't give up on the road ahead just because you fell once. Looking back on the last half year, it feels like a long nightmare. $800,000 bought me a painful lesson, but it also bought my daughter's awakening, and it bought me a new self, one who knows how to live for herself. So, tell me, in this transaction, did I lose or did I win? Sitting by the sun-drenched window, looking at the 4 words I just brushed onto the paper, years of quiet grace, although my technique is still clumsy, my heart is filled with an unprecedented sense of peace and tranquility. I think it was worth it. After all, money can't buy my happiness, and it certainly can't buy this long overdue, hard-won clarity. Thank you for watching. I hope today's story has touched you in some way. For those who haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the subscribe button so we can accompany you every day. Let's grow together. We'll see you next time.